Hello and welcome to Tour of Azerbaijan, stage 4, the penultimate stage from Kabala to Mingashavir. 205 kilometers in total for the riders. The second last run for them. What a fantastic stage 3 we had yesterday, with a wonderful survival through the last few kilometers by Josh Edmondson of On Post Chain Reactions. Proud moment for him as he took the stage honours, and Primoz Roglic, another day in blue of the overall race lead. Adria Mobil having an absolutely fantastic Tour of Azerbaijan 2015. Stage win, stage second place yesterday, and Roglic in a commanding position at the head of the overall standings. Heading into today's stage, which looks like it's one set up for a sprint finish, although we've seen in stage races in recent days that sometimes the early break does survive through to the finish line. It's the longish run, the longest stage of the week. Kabala to Mingashavir, finishing circuit and bringing them back into the centre of town. It's a ski slope start and towards relatively pan-flat course. No classified climbs along the way. 3 intermediate sprints towards that classification. No bonus seconds on offer, of course, in Tour of Azerbaijan 2015, so that's less of a concern to the general classification contenders. And more views of the wonderful mountain ranges that offer up superb skiing opportunities. Temperature, well, pretty much identical to the conditions that have prevailed for the last 3 days. Low enough on the humidity stakes, and pleasant temperature, and riders not really venturing into the mountains. So a few arm warmers in evidence at the beginning of today's stage in Kabala. They'll disappear at the back end of the stage, you can be sure of that. So the remaining riders making their way out for what is fundamentally a descending start to the afternoon's activities. And eventually, when the flag came in and the Commissar waved the riders on their way, not long before the action started, as you might expect. And plenty of ambition to get into the day's breakaway. This is the Gabala Ski Resort. Opened in January 2014. It's had a couple of upgrades even since then, and now it's up to 4 cableways. It's got 10 different ski slopes and a capacity for 3,000 people per day. Already it's played host to, well, over 140,000 tourists in 2014. And another example of the wonderful infrastructure that is being created for sports and tourism in Azerbaijan in the last couple of years. It really is a fast developing nation. This the sights and sounds over the Turankai Nature Reserve. And the view from the back of the peloton. Josh Edmondson, the winner of yesterday's stage, content to play a watching brief from the back. The man from Leeds in Yorkshire. Beautiful opportunist move and a fantastic piece of athleticism by Josh Edmondson to just manage to hang on ahead of the sprinters at the end of that very, very tough and challenging testing ramp up to the finish. 5% average for the last 3 kilometers of yesterday's stage. And he felt all of that, every one of those percents in the last few hundred meters, but just about managed to hang on, just got one arm in the air. It was a real old-style victory salute. Looked really good for the former Sky Pro cycling man, looking for a quick return to World Tour racing. Who'd bet against it? Certainly learning his trade, and On Post Chain Reactions, something of a feeder team for the big teams in recent years. Marco Kump taking the first intermediate sprint along the way. Just can't stop himself, can he? He's won the first 2 sprints of this race, in as much as he won stage 1 and then finished second yesterday, just a few yards behind Josh Edmondson. And Edmondson, great victory for him, for On Post Chain Reactions, and they're much in evidence again today, because here we have the live pictures from out on the route today. Conor Dunn, the tallest man in world cycling at 2 meters and 4 centimeters. He's been much in evidence already this week, doing great work for his team on the front in the closing stages of stage 1. An unfortunate crash on stage 2 that brought him to the attention of the TV cameras, and now he's decided to try his luck in the early break of the day. The blue jersey there of overall race leader Primož Roglic. Wonderful piece of athleticism too from him on stage 1. Managed to solo in 34 seconds clear of a 3-rider group, including the winner of the Vuelta a España in 2013, Chris Horner, showing Roglic's superb ability. Safely in the bunch at the moment. They are chasing down the riders up front. We're going to get the first break of the day out of the way. So welcome back to our viewers from British Eurosport. The 4 riders up front on stage 4 of Tour of Azerbaijan, continuing to plough on towards the finish in Minga Shavir. The tall, rangy figure of Conor Dunn at the back of the break here for on post chain reactions. And here's a sight of the main bunch lined out, charging along. Maximum 5-minute advantage for the 4 riders up front. We're waiting for another confirmation or another update on the gap as it currently stands, but we do know that that's coming down fast. Question is, will it be fast enough? Dukla Prague are on the front, chasing it down. They've got the leader of the youth classification, who has a relatively scant, bearing in mind the gap that the break have had. 1 minute and 52-second advantage in that youth classification on Daniel Turek. And Turek is in the break again for the 2nd day in a row. Here is the man who's leading the race overall, Primož Roglic of Adria Mobil. Took the jersey in emphatic style on stage 2 on Thursday afternoon, soloing clear on that mountaintop finish. The final climb came about 33 kilometers from the finish, but he managed to solo home, having taken the lead going into the early point. Marco Kump. The jersey is a little ill-fitting. The old arm warmers showing there. Alongside me is Magnus Backstedt, as he has been all week, running the rule over the teams. And if you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, it's hashtag Home of Cycling, at DQ Sport for myself. It's at Maggie_PR. And Magnus, Dukla Prague doing the work again, getting a little bit of help from Team Tavira as they did yesterday.
Yeah, very similar scenario to yesterday, actually. And you know, you got to take your hat off to Daniel Turek, who's again made the breakaway and really seems to be very keen on spending as much time as possible away from the rest of his teammates.
Much to the disappointment and discombobulation of Dukla Prague.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it's impressive to see a young man, you know, being as aggressive. And actually, it's not easy to pick the breaks and actually get yourself into the break, as we got him square in picture here, Mr. Turek. It's not easy to pick the break and to actually get into the break. It's not like you can sort of take your number and line up and off you go. You know, a lot of the time it actually takes, you know, up to 45 minutes to an hour before the break actually establishes, and picking that one. And there'd be 100 attacking between kilometer 0 and the moment that the break goes. So which one do you pick? Which one do you go with? And you know, commit to 100% as well. You might follow a couple of moves, but you might feel halfway through that no, this is not really gonna stick. And then yeah, it is really a sort of fingertip sensation, feeling what you how to
especially in one of the Grand Tours, the Tour de France, the first hour of a Tour de France stage, especially after a week. It must be fairly savage.
Well, it's savage in terms of your legs don't really want to turn in circles, but you know, you make them do that. But to be honest with you, it doesn't matter whether it's a Tour de France or whether it's a 3-day you know, small stage race in the back end of nowhere. It's the same kind of scenario every single day, and possibly even more frenetic when it's at a slightly lower level than the Tour. Tour can be a bit more controlled, and you know, the right composition of riders tends to sort of line up together and almost make that a attempt to go clear together. Whereas here it's just every man for themselves.
Especially with the offer of live pictures across Europe via Eurosport for the final 3 days, that makes the early break all that more tempting for so many more riders. Well, Daniel Turek's managed to work the Oracle 2 days in a row. The Czech rider riding with the Cycling Academy team. It's an Israeli-based squad, 22 years of age. We got a sight of him a few moments ago. The dark colours will pick him up again very shortly, and hoping to pick him up again before the end of the stage are the squad from Dukla Prague. I'm not sure whether these guys can play soccer, but famous soccer team once upon a time. And it's a great job that they're doing, and it'll be to the relief of the leading team, Adria Mobil, the Slovenian squad, who have the overall race leader. They also have the fastest sprinter in the race, and they will be relieved that they don't have to do the work chasing. So the riders in one long snaking line, making their way towards the finish in Minga Shavir. And as we've seen all week, it's really wonderful to see the level of enthusiasm that's being displayed and presented to the riders from the locals, and so many school children out as well. It's hear the shrieks of those younger voices at the side of the road, which will offer great encouragement to the riders. Always a boost when the crowds come out in force, as they have done in Tour of Azerbaijan, a race that's really been taken to the heart of the Azeri nation. And now another side of the four riders up front. It is Turek on the front, number 175 for the Cycling Academy squad. This is Conor Dunn, 2 meters and 4 centimeters. Certain discussion about whether he is the tallest man in world professional cycling. 2 meters and 4, according to my calculations, makes him about 6'8" in old money. And you're a tall bike rider, Magnus. It can be tough. It's not always to your advantage, especially not going up a hill.
Well, it's never really an advantage to be a tall rider. There's so many factors that plays into you know, your disadvantage. Really, it's drafting on the wheel of other riders, unless you're able to fold yourself onto the bike in a very particular way to actually become slippery in the wind and be able to get down low enough to get some shelter from smaller riders. You're in a disadvantage there. You know, getting the bike to be to fit to you and be long enough most of the time is the problem. The actual height of the bike is not really an issue. It's getting the length of the bike that's the difficulty, and the one thing that most bike manufacturers get wrong is that all of a sudden you think you're thinking, oh, a rider that's 6'8", he must be really tall and have really long legs. So you just build the bike high, but forget to actually make the bike longer, which you know, as a taller man, everything gets longer. And that has been, for me, a massive issue. So I can only imagine what it must be for Conor out here. Time trialing, we shouldn't even, I don't think we should get started on that one, because the position on the time trial bike.
Well, he has asked for a special dispensation from the UCI in the past, and that's been refused. That was before they changed the rule on the morphological measurements. I think they sort of upped it from, and you can give us the full details, 80 to 85 centimeters and what that actually means. But I think even with that, Conor Dunn is a little bit
well, he
bit of a concertina on the bike.
He will be disadvantaged in that position. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I went and applied for that particular rule as well, to be lifted and to allow me the 120-degree angle in the from the forearm to the upper arm. That is, you know, I think a better way forward in measuring things. And at that point, it stated that it was between you know, either a specific measurement or 120 degrees in your arm. So I think Conor is definitely struggling here.
Conor struggling. Griffin Easter is smiling, the man from Airgas Safeway cycling team in the breakaway group. They've 2:45 now, and the riders behind. Quick break out of the way now. This is Daniel Turek in the breakaway group for the second day in succession, and hoping perhaps to steal a march, pull a fast one on the group behind, and maybe vault himself into the lead of the youth classification. He's also picked up some intermediate points along the way. Conor Dunn from Unpost Chain Reaction. That's Griffin Easter, the 23-year-old with the Airgas Safeway cycling team from the United States of America. His second year with the squad and enjoying his first appearance at the Tour of Azerbaijan. 2 American squads for the first time making the trip. And this the 4th member of the quartet, Mohamed Atalay, the Turkish rider, riding with the Turkish Torku Sekespor squad. The oldest man in the group here, venerable elder statesman at the age of 25, sitting 43rd overall at 10 minutes and 56 seconds. The best placed rider from the breakaway group, no surprise, it's Daniel Turek. He's 24th overall at 5 minutes and 42, and as I say, within 2 minutes of the lead of the youth classification, currently held by Caesar of the Dukla Prague squad. And there is Caesar's teammate. Blaha just driving it on the front, Martin Blaha. And Team Tavira of Portugal also have ambitions. Didn't manage to get up in the sprint yesterday, but they'll keep pushing. Also, the Rus Velo squad have put a rider into the chase, so plenty of impetus. Still, the last gap that we got, 2:45, it's holding relatively steady at that, and it looks as if the bunch are, well, trucking along at a more impressive rate than the four up front, but maybe that's because of the sheer volume. It's a pretty hectic pedaling rate that we're seeing from Braha. But for all that, they're doing a great job up front. And Magnus, this is still should be relatively within the grasp of the main bunch. 2:45 at 30 kilometers remaining should be just about right.
Yeah, it's definitely, as long as they keep up the work rate that they got here, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to bring them back. Although we got some very strong riders out in the break here, so you know, it's, you never really know until the sort of final 20 Ks and where the guys are at that point. I mean, we've seen so many times in the past, it looks like they're going to get brought back, and then something happens. A couple of the teams in the peloton sort of give up and give up the chase, and they really, well, basically say, no, it's your turn to ride, and that team that they're expecting to ride is then not getting on the front riding, and all of a sudden the breakaway rides away. So I think it's
problem here for Daniel Abraham Gebru of the CCN cycling squad. Is it a puncture? Look as if there's a deflationary issue there with either of his tires. But his team car finally get to them. All the team cars, of course, are supplied by the race organisers here, so the identification not as obvious. Wheels coming out from the front. Oh, pesky lawyer tabs.
Yeah.
Do they have a place in professional cycling?
I don't particularly think so, but I can see why they you know, why they keep them in there, why there's a rule that they have to be on the bike now. These little taps on right at the bottom of the front fork, which means that basically it's impossible for the front wheel to fall out. Even if the quick release gets opened up, the front wheel won't
Pro teams know how to
fall out.
Know how to adjust their skewers, don't they?
Well, they do, but the thing is, though, you and I, well, the pros start, you know, filing them down. Obviously, you and I, we start filing them down and doing that, but then you got everyone else starting to do that as well, because it's okay to do so according to the pros, and before you know, so
they set a bad example for
you have an issue where an amateur rider who doesn't necessarily do the quick releases up in the right way and point the quick release in the right direction as well, then you got an issue.
Bit of an issue. No issue for Conor Dunn as he slugs out a rhythm. Slightly different stature for Griffin Easter, the United States rider, 23 years of age, 77th overall at 21 minutes and 32 seconds. This just his 6th day of UCI racing this year. It's his 2nd year on the team, but most of his racing done at domestic level in the United States so far this season. Still plenty of opportunity for a good standard. There's perfect positioning of a skewer, isn't it? Absolute put a level on that. Their aerodynamic deficiency there for that front skewer, as Easter, Dunn, Mohamed Atalay and Daniel Turek continue on their merry way. Chased down by the main bunch behind. There's Turek's teammate from the Cycling Academy squad, Zilberstein. No responsibility for him to get involved in the chase, of course. And this is definitely to the favour of the overall race-leading squad, Adria Mobile, Magnus. They don't have any responsibility to do any chasing now. I mean, would they? I mean, it's an interesting scenario, isn't it? They don't want to have to chase because they want to try and keep their legs fresh for tomorrow. But then they've got a pretty good sprinter there.
Yeah, they do have a good sprinter, but he's already won one stage, so that there is no pressure on them to get up there and ride and perform and try and win this stage as well. It could potentially be a bit greedy, and they've got the fact that they got the latest jersey. The team has won 2 stages. They can sit back, relax, let everyone else who is keen on winning a stage do all the work, and then pounds on it in the final sort of 5 kilometers or so, which puts them in a great spot.
And there's a close-up shot of the Azeri national road race champion, Elchin Azadov. He's a bit of a folk hero around these here parts. Cycling project from Synergy Baku has been a great success over the last couple of years, and they've been very much to the fore in the first few days of racing. They've got the man sitting 3rd overall, Machi Mugerli, finished 2nd on the big hilly stage on stage 2, and was also very much to the fore in the last couple of stages as well. He's been thereabouts all week, finishing 3rd behind Kump and Edmondson in yesterday's stage as well. Mugerli now sitting 3rd overall. So it's quite an unusual situation, Magnus, that the man who's sitting 2nd overall, Jasper Ukkelen, and we've had a couple of tweets into it's hashtag Home of Cycling at DQ Sport for myself and at Maggie_PR, but Jasper Ukkelen. So we see some of the sights and sounds of Azerbaijan. You're never far from some great tourism in this neck of the woods. But Ukkelen, who finished behind Mugerli on the big mountain stage, well, he's actually ahead of him as a result of the count back on the stage finishing positions. Sheikh Baradin and Sheikh Mansour tombs are hidden in the forest not far from Gabala now. It's a complex of Sufi mausoleums from the 15th and 16th century. Tombs in an octagon shape made of white stone. Riders not quite getting to see that. Riders heading towards the finish. We're going to get another break out of the way. Back after these. So now, 22 kilometers remaining. Tour of Azerbaijan, penultimate stage. 2 minutes and 30 the last time check that we've received for these 4 riders. So it's touch and go as the riders from Dukla Prague, assisted by Team Tavira of Portugal, pushing hard on the front to try and close them down, and perhaps there'll be a little bit of anxiety starting to creep in for the main bunch because they haven't made as much headway in closing down that gap in the last few kilometers as perhaps they might have liked. If those 4 riders up front hang on to this advantage as it currently stands, for another 4 or 5 kilometers things could get a little bit interesting, Magnus.
Yeah, definitely could be a bit interesting. I'm just looking at these roads. This is exactly my kind of territory of riding. Absolutely.
Not too many hedges and walls there, are there?
No, exactly. Just not enough wind, unfortunately, for it to be really interesting. But there you go.
Long straight roads. Doesn't always make it that easy for the breakaway in terms of getting the out of sight, out of mind opportunity. The bunch pretty soon will have them inside. At the very least, they'll be able to pick up the cars supporting these 4 riders. As Conor Dunn does a long turn on the front. And Griffin Easter takes a little bit of shelter in his wheel. He's definitely the man you want to follow up the line, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. You know, if you're in the breakaway like that, you always try and maneuver yourself into a position of a man, behind a man that you feel comfortable with, that sort of matches your riding style. And, you know, some riders like to sort of weave a little bit on the front, you know, when they're riding like Griffin Easter there. You could see him sort of moving all the time. That used to wind me up something
Little bit
chronic.
Jens
So,
Vogt.
well, Jensi and me training together was always interesting, because I never liked with the, you know, when the bike moves in front of me an awful lot like that. But you know, it's just one of those things you have to deal with. So I would always make sure that I put myself behind someone that is, you know, very stable and solid, and doesn't move on the bike at all. Not necessarily looking for the biggest man in front of me either, because for some reason I was always able to get a good shelter, and I learned very quickly through my youth years, as well as always been very tall compared to the other riders that I was racing with. So I learned very quickly how to position myself in the slipstream to get the maximum amount of help from just about any size rider.
Had to get your head down below the stem, I suppose.
No, not necessarily that. It's just how you where you position yourself. You know, sitting the absolutely closest is not necessarily all the best thing all the time. You can actually sit 20, 30, 40 centimeters off the back of someone. You know, the whole tends to, certain riders tend to create a bigger gap in the bigger vacuum in the air, just a fraction further off the back of you than right in there.
That's interesting. Yeah, the wake actually sort of goes a little bit higher.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, in theory that shouldn't be it, but that's the way it felt like for me when I was sitting, you know, when I was riding. And it was stuff that I had to play around with very, very early on in my career to understand and to learn to be able to maximize the way I was able to ride. And certainly when you got into breakaways, which I loved doing, you know, that was the sort of the end of the real game.
Ben Carroll's in touch on Twitter at DQ Sport, at Maggie_PR, hashtag home of cycling. And Ben saying, Magnus, who's the most powerful rider you've raced with or against? You would have been one of the more powerful guys in the peloton. Who was just able to generate more watts?
Well, when you're talking, you know, the more powerful rider, that's quite a wide range of stuff we're talking, really. I mean, we can talk, you know, peak effect numbers when you're sprinting, in which case I think I was up there on the scale of the more powerful riders, but certainly guys like Andre Greipel is incredibly powerful in the initial kick, like the first two maybe three pedal strokes. I know Cipollini was also very, very good at that particular snap. But then you got obviously riders who are able to produce a massive amount of watts for a longer period of time. So that whole most powerful rider, that's always an interesting concept.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, well, on a flat road, generating what's the threshold?
What's the threshold? I don't think there were many people pushing me on that one either, because of, you know, obviously the size that I was in. And
it was you. The answer is you.
The answer was me, I think. You know, I was able to sit at well over 500 watts for the majority of an hour when I was at my very, very best. And I don't know if there's anyone else out there who's doing that. I know Bradley Wiggins is getting very close when he's doing, you know, the hour record he's attempting now is borderline 500 watts.
Wow, and amazing aerodynamic efficiency.
And amazing aerodynamic efficiency as well, which means obviously he goes very quickly on his bike.
He certainly does. There's four guys going pretty quickly on their bikes and holding off the peloton very well at the moment. Turek at the back of the group is day two in the breakaway. For the Czech rider, 22 years of age. Best placed overall of these riders. Third on a stage of Czech Tour last year. Conor Dunn on the front. Second year on the An Post Chain Reactions team. Stage win in An Post in 2013. The main group continues to be stretched out in chase, in pursuit of the four riders up front. Dukla Prague, Team Tavira. Rosvello had a rider in there, but it looks like they've stepped out of it. Looks like another team has decided to lend its weight to the effort. And the Leopard team as well, the Leopard development squad, also in evidence. As we saw yesterday, they put a couple of riders into the chase, and they managed to get Christian Hogard Jensen into good position on the finish line. Finished 4th. 3rd, you might say, in the bunch sprint behind the solo winner Josh Edmondson, although Edmondson just had a scant single-second advantage by the time that was completed. This is Ying Chang-gu of the Giant Champion System Pro Cycling squad. They're all grouping together and perhaps thinking about opportunities that await them in the finish line or at the finish line in Minga Shavir. Well inside 20 kilometers to go. Haven't had a time gap recently, and it would be nice to know just the level of progress that the bunch are making, because the riders up front fully committed to the effort, and now they've saved as much energy as they possibly could, while conversely also managing to hang on to their advantage and sometimes extend it. It's a very unusual situation where you're riding hard but not too hard, because you don't want to create too much of an advantage too early and make the other teams behind start chasing too early. And then of course you want to get a situation where they, you manage to hoodwink them by saving a bit of energy and going again at the back end. It really is a complicated game of cat and mouse that's played between the breakaway group and the main peloton behind.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, sometimes you want to make sure that you get that massive gap and actually force the riders in the peloton behind to work hard from an early point, and other times you sort of get out to about 3, maybe 4 minutes, or certainly 3 minutes. I think for me is a good distance, and then you back off and just back off enough so that the peloton thinks that they're starting to catch you, which means they'll slow down again, and then you can just cruise along at a nice steady pace. And then as soon as you feel that, or get the information from either Blackboard or from the team car or whatever, that someone is starting to ride in the front, a bit harder in the peloton, that's when you get back on it and you really respond to the work that they're doing in the peloton. And that can really cause a massive amount of confusion for them in the peloton, and all of a sudden they're realizing that, well, hang on, we're not bringing these guys back. And there will either be another 3-4 teams coming up to the front and helping out then, and at which point your days are numbered. Alternatively, it shuts down completely behind you, and you're walking away with the stage win at that point.
It can happen. It's happened in world stage racing within the last couple of days. Watch Price, the breakaway, surviving, and 2 international stage races in succession. Griffin Easter's really, well, he does move around a bit on the bike, but these riders are fully committed to this. I saw an elbow flick from Connor Dunn a little earlier that could have taken your eye out. So every gesture, every movement is a statement of intent. Turek really gets low over the bike, doesn't he? Sitting on the drops. His fingers, well, he's sitting at the front, so I'm not sure whether he's expecting to break. That's where he likes to hold his index fingers, guarding the brake levers. Dukla Prague continuing to chase behind, assisted by Team Tavira. The Kazakhstan national squad also in evidence. Their best rider yesterday in the sprint to the line, Matvey Nikitin, finishing in 11th. Primož Roglic, the overall race leader, managing to finish 9th on the line, 8th in the bunch sprint for Adria Mobil. So he's being careful to make sure that he stays up there for the finish, stays safe. No bonus seconds on offer. Just staying out of trouble, and did a good job there. Of course, it was a ramp up to the finish line, so might have dragged a few of the GC guys further into contention for that sprint. Although the pace of Marco Kump on the finish line really was a sight to behold, and one wonders if there's anyone to touch him. Francesco Chicchi, who finished 2nd on stage 1 for Androni Giocattoli, unfortunately a non-finisher on stage 2. It was absolute bedlam and carnage on the roads of stage 2. So many riders failing to make it to Ismaili. 2 minutes now, still the advantage for the lead group. It's touch and go here.
Yeah, they certainly picked up the pace a bit in the breakaway. In 2 minutes is starting to get to that point where it's just about manageable. And you know, seeing as we only got 6-man teams here as well, we keep forgetting that it's not 8-man teams where you can sacrifice 6 and then still have 1 man to lead out and the sprinter. This is, you know, it's a couple of guys riding and then a couple of guys maybe holding on for a sprint. And I think that's partly why Adrian Mobile are not riding either, because, you know, they got the general classification man and the sprinter. That's 2 guys out of the equation, which means they only got 1 or 2 riders to work with, and the sort of a backup man. And at that point, you know, they're not.
They need those legs tomorrow.
They need those numbers tomorrow, and they need all of the guys ready for work tomorrow. So they've obviously done a good thing in getting these guys up the road, and now it's just down to everyone else to really chase it if they want to have a go at the stage win. But this is looking very, very good now. 10k to go.
Inside the final 10 kilometers of stage 4 of Tour of Azerbaijan, the breakaway group of 4 riders have a 2-minute advantage. That was the last indication we got on the time gap, so it's looking good for the breakaway riders. Can they hang on to this advantage? Well, they're absolutely charging along behind in the main bunch, led by Dukla Prague with assistance from Team Tavira. 1 or 2 other teams putting in a rider here and there. Champion Systems riders on the back of the bunch in massed ranks, but not looking at the moment as if they're going to be able to get involved in the shake-up at the back of the stage. Airgas Safeway's rider on the back, and also they have a representative in the breakaway group in the shape of Griffin Easter, who's doing a superb job today. 1:42 now, so there's a bit of a chunk came out of the lead there as Russ Velo put a rider on the front.
I think that's the first time this week that we've seen Russ Velo. They've been very, very absent from any kind of racing so far that I've seen anyway.
Sergei Honkar in the car for them. Superb time trialist in his time.
Yeah, Goncha was certainly one of the top time trialists, and also a very capable climber for a man who certainly wasn't really built like a climber. He's quite a powerful built guy, but was just able to sustain really high resistance on his pedals. He was one of these guys that certainly wasn't a pedaler that you know, he was riding around on the biggest gear I've seen for some time, and but made it very efficient.
So now other teams are starting to make their presence felt. Dukla Prague have done their work, and I don't think they've got the legs to make any further contribution to this. Adrian Mobile are content to watch, as riding sitting third for them. Third of their riders is the overall race leader Primus Roglic. He won't be going up to help, but Russ Velo clearly feel the anxiety, and they've put Artem Ovechkin of Russ Velo into the chase. It's the side at the back of the bunch as riders are really starting to feel the pinch. Luis Lemus at the back of the group. We saw his wonderful bid for glory yesterday, the Mexican rider for Airgas Safeway cycling team. Didn't quite, just came up short, caught by Josh Edmondson and then swamped by the pack in the closing stages of yesterday's stage. But his teammate now, Airgas Safeway cycling team's Griffin Easter, is in the early break, is just riding onto the front there. You see him in the white, blue and black jersey. In his wheel, Mohamed Atalay of the Turco Secaspor squad. Fundamentally white jersey with green flashes. Predominantly green with white flashes is the On Post Chain Reactions jersey of Conor Dunn. And then the dark colours of Daniel Turek in the break. Second day in a row, maybe an opportunity for a famous stage victory. 1 minute and 25 seconds. This one's going to be close, I tell you. 7.5 kilometres to go, and they cannot afford to dally at this point. Those 4 riders up front really have to pile it on. Looking at the finish, Magnus, it's relatively technical.
It is pretty technical, but first off, it looks like they got a pretty strong wind that they're riding into now, and that's not going to play in the advantage of the breakaways, that's for sure. But with 2 kilometers to go, just outside of 2 kilometers to go, we've got a 90-degree turn. Then we've got another 90-degree with about 1.6k to go. another 90-degree with 1,300 meters to go, and then a final one with about 600 meters to go as well, but it's a left-hand turn, the final corner. So it does look like it's relatively technical, but also like there's enough straights in there for people to move up if they do mess up in any of the corners.
Yeah, plenty of turns, but the road's relatively wide, so not really to the advantage of the breakaway riders. Daniel Turek takes a little anxious look over his shoulder. He hasn't done that in a while, and you sense that these riders sense that they're running out of energy, running out of kilometers too for the bunch to close them down. This one is going to be close. Adria Mobil have decided to put riders into the chase, and this is an interesting decision. They were looking for an easy day today. They haven't done too much chasing, but now with just 7 kilometers left, why not have a go at the stage victory?
Well, if you're looking at the pace that they're putting into this, not exactly going flat out, the Adria Mobil rider. They just got to the front to keep Roglic out of any sort of major drama. The pace is far from flat out.
So more interested in just staying towards the front, staying away from accidents, but not actually, huge ambition in closing this one down.
Well, there's no ambition in closing it down as far as I can see, and they basically got to the front police. Everyone was looking at Roglic and got a bit sort of scared that, look, okay, what we do now? They clearly want to be in the front. So yeah, they're just...
Griffin Easter there almost coming to grief as they ran across that railway crossing.
It's probably not used to him not coming square across the road.
Yeah, they were at a bit of an angle. You wouldn't want that on a wet day, would you? They've quickly put it behind them. The body language of the 4 riders up front in stark contrast to that of Adria Mobil on the front of the main bunch. But will the other teams start to group at the front once more? Surely the impetus of so many riders crowding their way to the front is going to make a difference here. Adria Mobil still in the front. Rusvello send a couple of troops up there. The Kazakh national squad in their wheels. The red colours of Rusvello to the fore. Dukla Prague in the yellow colours looking to get back and realising that really the Adria Mobil team not going quick enough.
No, that wasn't going quick enough, and now we got Androni coming up here as well, and that's not really going too fast either.
Androni Giocattoli, as we've said, they've lost their big sprinter Francesco Chicchi on day 2. And Griffin Easter is really feeling this one. Atale looking pretty good though, isn't he? And Turek still confident. So one wonders what the time gap is. Inside 5 kilometers to go. We're not getting a look at that whiteboard. The riders barely time to take it all in. They know they can't even think about what the gap is. They just have to extract every joule of energy now between now and the finish line. They'll know that they're within 5 kilometers of a famous success. Could the early break manage to pull a fast one on the bunch behind? Smaller teams, smaller bunch, and a lack of control, and wonderful athletic performances here from these 4 riders as they try and hold off the baying pack. It's nip and tuck here. Last time gap we got would indicate that it was within their compass, but I wonder just how much of that advantage they've retained. As they hit 4 kilometers to go, they're starting to believe. The adrenaline is starting to flow and replace the lost energy in these riders' legs, and they'll start also to be thinking about who's got the fastest finish and whether they need to go early. But I think they need to ride together as one, as a team time trial, pretty much all the way to the line.
Yeah, well, it would be interesting if we could find a time gap at this point to actually know how far back these guys are, because at the moment, are they clear or are they not clear?
Across the river and into the centre of Mingachevir, within touching distance of a big victory. And this the side of the finishing town today. They're out boating on the river, oblivious to the superb performance that's been presented to us by these 4 riders from the breakaway. Griffin Easter is absolutely burying himself, 23 years of age. This result is, if he hangs on in the break, already a very impressive one. Could it be that he manages to take victory? Who would you put your money on at the moment? Rusvello absolutely frantic in their efforts to get back on terms. Dukla Prague have taken a little bit of a rest and have come back with serious intent to try and present their sprinter. František Císař is capable of a fast finish for them. And Daniel Turek feeling it a little bit.
Yeah, they can't have too big a gap, because looking at how sort of frenetic these guys are working up front, no one is starting to play any tactical games. They're all still driving as hard as they can to stay clear.
Big wide boulevards, long straight roads always offer the opportunity to the riders behind, and they're coming across the river, so they can't be more than well, it's got to be around about a minute, maybe just a little bit less. A little bit of a pinch point there won't cause too much confusion in the bunch. The wide roads making it relatively safe in the main bunch behind. But look at everyone, 1 minute and 3 seconds.
Oh, there
so
we go.
that is an excellent opportunity now for these 4 riders to take this famous victory inside the final 4 kilometers, probably closer to 3 at this point, but they must ride it all the way to the line.
Well, 2K to go coming up here now with the turn going down to the right. So this is the point where these guys can obviously start playing. That looked like it was a lot less than a minute on that whiteboard.
Yes,
it said around, I think it looked like about 30 seconds. So if it's 30 seconds, they haven't got an awful lot of time to start playing, but someone's got to take that move.
Atalay is on the front, and the Drapac team from Australia now make their presence felt at the front of the peloton, but it's more about setting up for a sprint finish. But it's a sprint finish for 5th in the bunch, because these 4 riders are surely going to hang on. Well inside 2 kilometers to go now. Griffin Easter on the back of the group. Just in front of him in the green of Post Chain Reactions is Conor Dunn, trying to make it 2 stage wins in succession for the Irish registered Belgian-based squad. On the front of the group at the moment is Daniel Turek in the dark colours of the Cycling Academy team, the Czech rider with the Israeli squad, as Conor Dunn looks to take a slightly alternative line through this roundabout, catching Griffin Easter out a little bit, the diminutive figure of the United States rider with the Ergas Safeway cycling team. And at the back of the group here is Atalay, the Turkish rider, as we arrive at the kite. 1,000 meters remaining.
Yeah, 1K to go. They can really start thinking about how to set this up now, and I think Conor Dunn has just found himself on the front. I would be surprised if anyone takes a turn on.
Yeah, he flicks his elbow and he says, come on, but it's not going to. Griffin Easter looks over his shoulder. He's not wanting to commit to it. And there's the attack we knew was going to come from the back. Daniel Turek goes for it. He's got a gap. Griffin Easter is the one that tries to respond. But Daniel Turek, 2nd day in succession in the breakaway, and he's got the all-important gap. Conor Dunn watches in frustration behind, as Atalay it is that takes over from Easter in pursuit of the lone leader. Daniel Turek from the Czech Republic, 22 years of age, has forged clear. Surely he's going to be able to hang on now. We're inside the final 500 meters of stage 4 of Tour of Azerbaijan, and Turek is racing clear. He looks over his shoulder, and so too does Atalay. Atalay looking for help. There goes Conor Dunn. Conor Dunn launches for the line. Griffin Easter struggling in his wake. Atalay desperately trying to get on terms with the Irish rider, and they're hounding down Turek, but surely no one's going to stop Turek now. Turek, get to the cheers of the crowd. The Czech rider racing to a famous victory from the early break. He's dying a million deaths on the run to the line. Atalay gets overdone, and it's Turek that gets the victory, as Atalay gets 2nd position, Dunn in 3rd, and Griffin Easter a fine 4th for Ergas Safeway cycling team. But no doubt about the rider that gets the victory. It's Daniel Turek, and with it gets a little bit closer in the youths classification. He's not going to take over the lead of that. He won't mind that. It's a great stage success for him. Daniel Turek gets the victory, and now that leaves the bunch behind, scrapping over the minor positions in the race for 5th over the line. It's Synergy Baku that lead it out. Dukla Prague also getting involved, and it's the leader of the points classification, already a 1st and a 2nd, Marco Kump, that is going to lead them home. Surely no one's going to stop him in the sprint for 5th position. Oh, and it's a big celebration from Drapac. They believe that he's got up there for stage success. No race radios at this level of racing, so no awareness that that group of 4 had managed to hang on. What an impressive performance by Daniel Turek, and a nice piece of opportunistic riding.
Yeah, definitely a strong ride by Turek, who's been out there in the break on a number of occasions now, and finally it paid off for him. And great move. He spotted that kind of the riders were busy talking and arguing with each other about who was going to ride and not ride, and he just spotted the opportunity, went for it, and managed to hold on. So great ride.
Absolutely the right thing to do. Conor Dunn, anxious and frustrated that he found himself on the front inside the final kilometre, starts shouting at Griffin Easter. Easter looks around himself as he rolled through, but Turek timing his run to perfection, and the other riders behind just not possessing the strength to overhaul this 22-year-old rider, making a name for himself, sitting 24th overall, 5:42 behind going into today's stage. He'll have taken a little bit more time back and moved himself up general classification. So Turek, certainly his trip to Tour of Azerbaijan has been very, very worthwhile. Eighth on GC in the Carpathian Couriers under-23 race a couple of years ago. The summit of his achievements in world cycling. This leaps to the top of his palmarès. And in the sprint to the line, looked like Marco Kump was home and hose for fifth, but minor positions of minor relevance at this point, as we wait for the confirmation of the stage standings. Turek gets the victory ahead of Clemens Frankhauser, 1 second down. Conor Dunn and Griffin Easter. Brenton Jones gets up for Drapac. Marco Kump just behind him for Adria Mobile. Ben Fato it was for Androni, and Kazakh national team also represented in there. So a bit of confusion about the membership of that breakaway group, but no doubt about the man that took the stage success, Daniel Turek. And congratulations all round, not least from Primož Roglic, who hangs on to his overall stage, his overall lead.
Today. That was a big one, right?
Yeah, thank you. I had very big lucky because I was in breakaway yesterday and I had flat, I think 12 kilometers to go, and today I try breakaway too, and I'm clever, and I was clever and I had lucky, and after only work, sometimes I thinking about, yeah, we can. After 10 kilometers, I think that we can, because I was second in Young Jersey, and Dukla Praga from Czech team, from Czech Republic, won't catch me, but in finish we had 1 minute, and when we had 1 minute in 1 kilometer, I say yes, this is my life chance, and I attack, I think 700 meters to go, and I attack maximum and I win. Yeah.
What does it mean to you, this victory?
This is best result in my life, so I hope that first and that will be next.
Congratulations.
Well, nicely described, wasn't it, by Daniel Turek? Charming interview, and wonderful to hear just what it means to him. The best victory in his life. Took his opportunity with 700 meters to go. He said he was clever and he was lucky. It wasn't just luck, was it? It was clever and wonderful piece of athleticism for him to hold off those three riders behind. Turek gets the victory. Roglic hangs on.